This is a video all about patterns and play. There are all kinds of patterns in the world. But what do we mean when we call something a pattern? A pattern might consist of a set of shapes or colors that repeat in a particular way, or a design that repeats the same images again and again, or even a song that alternates between verse and chorus. In all of these different forms, we find that a pattern is something that repeats according to a specific rule. To support children's mathematical thinking, you can help them recognize that patterns repeat in predictable ways. Let's look at some examples. Here's a type of pattern we call a repeating pattern, because it's made up of many copies of the same repeating unit. In this case, hexagon rhombus is the repeating unit, because that's what's repeating again and again in the pattern. This pattern is called a growing pattern, because it grows by the same number each time it repeats. Here, the pattern grows bigger by one block each time. There are also concentric patterns, which are patterns that share the same center. So here, even though these circles are different sizes, they form a concentric pattern because they all have the same center point. There are lots of ways that kids can play with patterns. They can copy existing patterns, they can extend patterns, they can figure out what pieces are missing from patterns, or they can even transfer a pattern from one set of materials to a different set. We've developed a series of pattern games that help children practice all of these skills. While playing these games, you can help children recognize how a pattern is repeating by asking them questions. For example, when children extend, copy, or find the missing piece in a pattern, you can ask, "How did you know?" questions, like, "How did you know what came next?" Or, "How did you know that was the missing piece?" Not only will you hear a wide variety of explanations, but it's also a great habit for children and adults to get into with math, to not only say what you know, or what the answer is, but also to say how you know it. When playing with patterns, it can also be helpful to chant the pattern out loud with children, like saying the names of shapes, rhombus, trapezoid, rhombus, trapezoid, rhombus, trapezoid. Or you could chant a characteristic of the objects, like their colors. Blue, red, blue, red, blue, red. Kids enjoy the sound of the sing-songy chant, and it helps them recognize the repetition in patterns because they're seeing and hearing the repeating units. As you check out our pattern games, remember that you can play these games with everyday household items, or objects you find out in the world. It doesn't always have to be shapes. You could extend a silverware pattern in the kitchen, or find the missing fruit, or copy a pattern of big and small rocks outside. Children can go on pattern hunts around their school or neighborhood, and you can help them see that patterns are everywhere in the world around us. You can even get your whole body involved by playing with patterns of dance moves, rhythms, or songs. One last note on patterns. In elementary school, children might start learning ways to name patterns using letters. A pattern can be represented using letters by assigning a letter to each unique item of the pattern's repeating unit. So if my pattern's repeating unit is triangle, square, square, I could call it an A, B, B pattern, where the triangle is represented by A and the square is represented by B. Or if my pattern's repeating unit is triangle, square, trapezoid, triangle, I would call it an A, B, C, A pattern. Using letters to represent patterns is a way to talk about the structure of repeating patterns. Instead of describing the pattern as something, then something else, then the second thing again, you can use letters and call it an A, B, B pattern. Preschool children don't need to use this type of letter representation. They can play all these cool pattern games without ever hearing about this. But using letters to name the repeating unit of a pattern is a way to help us talk about the structure of patterns.